There's nothing more exciting than a new game release. You have been waiting months, even years for this release, paid out the backside for the pre-order, patiently stared at the install progress, all bright-eyed and excited.
But sometimes a game's introduction can really kill your gaming mood, no matter how amazing the game might be, and you tell yourself you will always keep a separate save slot that bypasses the opening level and or tutorial section.
Sometimes the game's intro can be too drawn out, or it can explain way too much and patronise. It's like, we've played a game before, we are well aware of the very basic video game mechanics, thank you very much.
Or it can just be a poor game opener that doesn't reflect the game overall or be too difficult. Whatever the reason behind it, there are some game intros that leave a sour taste in our mouths. Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Heather, and here are 5 of the worst game intros for amazing games.
Ah, up there!
Arceus is a brilliant semi-open world Pokémon game that allows the player to roam around the wilds catching and battling Pokémon in their natural habitat in an effort to populate the world's very first Pokédex. It's a wonderful pretext for a Pokémon game and is such a fun collectathon.
Unfortunately, Arceus suffers from what I like to call the player is stupid syndrome, where the developers have clearly assumed that the people who play the game are complete muppets. The opening section of the game is seriously such a drag. As eager Pokemon adventurers, all we want to do is get out there and catch Pokemon, but we are just dialogue and tutorial hostages.
Basically, you fall out of the sky and are greeted by Professor Lavaton, who explains the very basics of what a Pokemon are, and then tasks you with catching 3 of his runaway Pokemon. Once you do this, he wants you to join the Galaxy Expedition team, where you are placed under the scrutiny of the rest of the team, who then task you with, you guessed it, catching 3 more Pokemon to prove your worth, but this time with the guidance of Ray.
Between all of this, there's lots of sitting down and chatting over bowls of potato mochi. It's a very long opener with lots of repetition and back and forth, and being trapped in tutorial land for so long, it's really frustrating. You catch 3 Pokemon, then you catch 3 Pokemon again, then you go to the Obsidian Fieldlands for a guided tutorial, then there's a crafting tutorial, then you go to the Obsidian Fieldlands for a guided tutorial. It's truly annoying since they dangle what's to come by showing you the outside area you can roam around later, but restricting you from wandering off until you have finished the tutorial.
Firstly, everyone and their mother on this planet understands the concept of Pokemon and Pokeballs by now, even people with no interest in the series. We really don't need such an in-depth explainer. Also, I'm sure there are people out there that like the story and this level of character and world building, but for me, I just wanted them to shut the hell up and leave me alone so I can explore and catch Pokemon.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim has an opening sequence that is notorious for being slow, boring and tedious. You are being dragged along in a cart as a prisoner for a long time, staring at the other prisoners and listening to their inane chatter. This intro might not be as lengthy as some, but it's certainly annoying having to sit there for a while and it feels longer than it is.
It doesn't help that the base game has quite a limited colour palette for the intro, namely grey, grey and more grey. This limited colour and visual stimulation makes this opening section feel even more tedious to get through.
First you have to hear Hadvar give a roll call of names and everyone takes their place towards the chopping block. Then after Lokir of Rorikstead decides to make a break for it, and then finally it's here you get to choose your character.
But you still can't do anything. After making your Dragonborn, your character moves towards the block just like everyone else without you controlling them. So you have to sit there and just wait as more dialogue spews around without you caring, because at this point you'll start to get really bored.
And then Alduin finally arrives and puts an end to all this nonsense, but you are still in the intro. After you are finally able to get free, you can choose between following Rayloff or Hadvar through the Helgen Keep, which acts as a baby's first dungeon. For first time players this isn't a problem, but for long time players this is really where the tedium gets to you, because you've already done this dance before and have to do it all again.
What can also make the game feel a little boring is that when you compare this intro to the intro in Oblivion, it's really like night and day. I know a lot of that comes down to the fairy tale style of Oblivion and the more realistic looking world of Skyrim, at least when it comes to the characters, but it's not as whimsical as one might first expect. Also, the intro in Oblivion allows a lot more freedom for the player than Skyrim does, as you are not as on rails as you are here.
If you are a seasoned Skyrim player like me, then you probably sprint past a lot of this crap just so you can get out there and explore the game. Skyrim is a huge game with lots to do, but the intro is such a drag. It's no wonder that one of the most popular mods you can get for this game on PC is the alternate start mod, allowing players to start their game however they choose. God bless modders.
Look at him.
Stories of death and the bodies left behind.
Although Biomutant was severely review bombed upon release and proved to be Marmite to players, I absolutely loved this game, but it comes with a very long and tedious opening, which was so long and tedious that the developers actually changed the game post-release to make the tutorial section shorter. Even after this patch, the intro for the game is lackluster and slow.
Basically, you are traversing underground at the start after fleeing an attacker, and you are taught the basic controls of combat. You are then subject to huge sections of dialogue where the whole concept of the game and world is explained to you, and there's a lot to cover.
Toxanol built vessels. There are few records of the chain of events save once a single
It is understandable for a new IP to need to include a lot of exposition, but there are smarter ways to communicate history, plot, controls, and other elements of the game instead of having someone just explain it all to you in Elvis mode.
That is hilarious.
You need to support the tree for a
The tribe wars could have been discovered through exploration. The history of the world could have been discovered through reading old books scattered across the land or in an old abandoned library. Tangible remnants of the civilization that ruined the world. Your character's traumatic past could have been slowly uncovered throughout the game as you found memory triggers, similar to East Memories of Salsetta. There's a lot of interesting ways they could have given context to the information players needed instead of this headache.
And it's quite a shame really, because the game is great once you are free to roam around this huge open world, despite what you might hear about it. A lot of the common gripes have now been fixed because the developer was fantastic about listening to community feedback and being responsive. As well as cutting down the tutorial section, the storytime style narrator can be disabled, bugs and glitches have been fixed, the impact of combat has been increased, and more difficulty modes have been added. If you were considering trying out this game, there's no better time to do so, but bear in mind that the intro is one hell of a stinker.
There's out of date again. He must have missed something important.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Out of date knows you'll make a better stand against the world eaters with...
Where is my son, Dutch Vanderlyn?
We will find him, we will bring him back to you, and we will kill any fool that had the temerity to touch one hair on that boy's head.
Red Dead Redemption 2 has the ultimate slow burner of an intro. It's like a punishment. If you want to play this amazing game, then you must endure this first. Thankfully, you do get a sense of how top tier the graphics are as you trudge through the snowy wilderness and look on in amazement at the realistic character designs.
Like many of the games on this list, the intro does serve a purpose thematically. The problem is that it takes a very long time before you can just hop on a horse and go as you please. First off, Arthur, Dutch and everyone's favourite piece of shit Micah have to go ahead of the group and try and locate food. This isn't too bad as it sets up the combat system for the game, but there's a lot of talking. Common theme in this video. After that, you head to where the group have made camp, and from here you help out a few of your gang members with odd jobs. Again, on paper this sounds fine, but the problem is the execution.
Next up, you look for John, who went out hunting and has instead become the hunted, and this is also slow. You have to track him down and then dismount your horse and walk across a snowy mountain, chin-wagging all the way, which is fine, but again, it's really slow, as John keeps yelling where he is so you can find him, and then you have to go hunting yourself.
And this is the one I hate doing. I never use the bow. I don't really care all that much for hunting the legendary animals, and whenever I encounter a wild animal, I just pump it full of lead. And I'm sure most people are with me when it comes to that, although I could be wrong. The other reason I hate this is the archery system in this game sucks. Apparently Arthur has arthritis in his arms because he can only hold down the bow for about 5 seconds before he gives up the ghost. And it wouldn't be so bad, but the deer take more than one hit before they finally go down as hard as Bambi's mother.
The only part of this intro that is truly awesome is the train heist. This is where the game starts to pick up a little, but this is only a short burst of what's to come. After you finish the heist, you have to control the horse and wagon as you head for the camp that is outside Valentine, and this is broken up as you have to do an MOT on your wagon when the wheel pops off.
And then you keep going until you finally set up camp, and even then everyone has to chime in and give a gospel's worth of gab before you're shown your section of the camp, and then you can finally fuck off and go wherever you want. Of all the games on this list, this is the one I didn't want to include. For me, this is Rockstar's masterpiece. It's just a shame you have to spend about 2 hours to get past the bloody introduction.
I need some rest. I haven't slept in 3 days.
You're over here.
And now we come to the worst, and that is the opening of Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. This opening section is an actual pain. This is a brutal opening, and it's just so slow.
You spend half of it slowly crawling around the floor because you are injured and the other half wondering what the hell is even going on. Of course, this sort of weird line between realism and silliness is par for the course when it comes to Metal Gear, but for many people, this would have been their first introduction to the series, like it was for both of us, and it is not kind to newcomers.
I have to be honest here, I barely made it past the intro, and once I did, I didn't feel like playing anymore. It's a mood killer for sure. You have to follow another patient through the hospital as mercenaries shoot up the place, apparently looking for you. You have to lie on bodies, crouch, hide under tables, and even for seasoned Metal Gear players, you have to admit that playing Hide and Seek Mercenary Edition isn't fun.
But another problem is that unlike the other intros on this list, this one serves no purpose, at least from a gameplay perspective. You just constantly crawl around on your belly like a snake until you get to the entrance of the hospital to make your escape. At no other point in the game do you crawl around like this.
You don't even get to do anything fun until the very end of the tutorial, where you're on horseback shooting another horse that's on fire after a flying flaming whale comes out of nowhere and attacks. Yeah, good luck explaining that.
We know that this game was plagued with production issues and is technically incomplete, and we're unsure if this affected the intro sequence, but my god is this a chore. If you ever want to start a new game, you'll have to be brave because there's a lot you have to endure to get to the best bits.
Like the title of this list implies, this game is amazing and there is so much fun to be had even in its incomplete state, but I can completely understand why anyone would be turned off after the first hour. So yeah, screw you game developers, stop making slow intros and dangling your juicy games just out of reach. Some of us haven't got the time and patience to get through your boring intros. It's okay the first time, but in the future please give us the option to skip the intro in subsequent playthroughs. We love you, why don't you love us?
So what do you think are the worst intro sections for amazing games? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe. Yes, we know everyone and their mother asked you to subscribe, but it really does help us small YouTubers grow. I've been Craig.
And I've been Heather, this is Amalgamingle, and thanks for watching.